have three founders of three different live streaming platforms. As I mentioned, I'm super fascinated with this space and very excited about them all joining us today. Different types of experiences, but all about live video, live experiences with communities. And they haven't all met each other before, so here we go. Great. Thank you, guys. Hopefully I have my questions somewhere here. Oops. Lost them. I turned it off so it would be distracting. It's never a good thing to be paneling with a computer that you haven't actually turned on yet. I should have stuck with my legal pad. Okay, so before we jump into this, and feel free to raise hands at any point during this, but I am going to call for questions at the end, but happy to have you guys jump in while they're talking about particular topics because we want to keep this super interactive. If you guys could just each introduce yourselves very quickly, one line, who you are, and one line about what your product is actually doing today.
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Felipe Heusser. I'm the founder and CEO of Rhinobear.tv and also a fellow at the Berkman Center for Internet Society at Harvard. And what Rhinobear is, really, it's a live video platform. It's an open live video platform that delivers video in real time. And by real time, I mean real time with a lag of 0 and not 20 seconds late, as Periscope America do. We also deliver live video without the need of apps and to be downloaded or plugins. So it's basically coming straight from the browser using WebRTC. And also we focus on delivering live video with multiple angles. So basically we focus not just on individual streams, but in events or places with different angles in the same website.
Thank you. Go ahead, Lippe.
There were a lot of commas in that sentence.
You can use semicolons.
My name is Lippe, Oosterhof, if you forget about that. It's a difficult Dutch name. I'm based in London. I run a company called Livestation, which was one of the pioneers in live streaming. We started in 2009, aggregating all of the world's linear news channels and put them on one consumer platform. And we've recently pivoted into more of a Periscope type model. We can talk about that later.
Sure.
Good morning, everyone. Doshi. I'm working on a new initiative called Firetalk, which is a always-on interactive video platform. We're building this for this new generation of broadcasters to help them engage with and monetize their audiences.
Okay, before I go to the next question, does anyone in the audience work at Meerkat or Periscope? Okay, because I was going to call on you if you did. And the other question is, has everybody here ever used Meerkat or Periscope? Everyone has live broadcasted themselves or one of their close friends recently? Somewhat familiar with, okay, all right, good. So generally, they should all be using your platforms.
Who's been interacting with the people that were watching you? About half. That's pretty good. Okay,
good. Okay, so just, you guys can go in whatever order, but my original question is, having spent most of my entire digital career in video, what brought you to live streaming? Like, why is live video streaming more compelling, driving you to all found these products? What did it for you?
So in my case, I come from an advocate and scholar on the freedom of information space, so not coming from video or from media. And back in 2011, there was a huge, and probably you see, I'm from Chile, so there's huge protests taking place in Santiago, 2011. And the story that was being told by the mainstream media was really a story of violence, riots, not really the peaceful, event that was taking place. People were taking the streets claiming for their rights to education. So what I wanted to do at that point, 2011, in a pre-drone time, was to share what was going on in the streets from an authentic and credible perspective. And I'd used Twitcaster actually at that time. And again, because drones were not available in 2011, what I did was I bought a bunch of helium balloons and tied a string with a phone and gave it to different people throughout the protest. And the first balloon that we sent up in the air got 10,000 viewers organically. I mean, no money into Facebook or whatever to bring attention. So that did it for me in terms of saying, there's this thing about live in a network that was terrible. Thousands of people, 3G in South America was not the best context ever for live streaming. And nevertheless, it was powerful. Thousands of people watching it because it was credible, because it was genuine. So basically, Rhinobird for us is the latest iteration from that idea of saying, how can we build an infrastructure to create this kind of people-driven TV network that is open?
That's amazing. Okay, so helium balloon, first drone, you heard it here. Go ahead, Lippe.
For me, it was the Arab Spring. I got a phone call in the beginning of the Arab Spring from a company that I'd never heard of in London. And they said, our company's blowing up. We need somebody to run it. Are you interested? And I thought that was one of those fake LinkedIn emails that you get. Turned out that this was real, and these guys were running all of the news channels, BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, and they had unique rights to stream these channels in 2009, which is one of the, that was pretty pioneering. And of course, as the Arab Spring blew up, everybody was watching these channels on this particular platform. So I have a news and a video background. I've done a bunch of startups in that space. I was immediately intrigued because I think live is just super exciting, right? So we had to overcome a whole lot of hurdles with distributing linear feeds on the internet, but we did, and we managed to build a pretty substantial, for a startup like 20 million uniques a month was pretty decent. And then we were asked by lots of channels around the world, please help us with our live streaming technology, so we did. So that's how we originally got into this. So we solved the problem of the diaspora, if you will, right? Lots of Arabs around the world, but also other nationalities were interested in watching news from home, and they couldn't because traditional satellite and cable doesn't allow you to do that. So the internet for live feeds is great. And about a couple of years ago, we recognized that more and more of our partners were doing their own live streams, which, sometimes using our technology, sometimes using third-party technology, but our previous proposition was less and less relevant. But our news channels were saying, well, hang on, nobody watches our channel anymore. We have the data, and 24/7 news channels are kind of dying. It's really tough
Don't
for
say
them
that to this room.
It's true.
Especially not to Bloomberg.
Well, I can only speak for the government-backed channels, but we work very close with them, and it's a pretty kind of an open secret that it's very tough to make a 24/7 news channel work. So about a year ago, they came to us and said, look, the aggregated reach of our journalists and correspondents is bigger than our own channel. What if we give our journalists the ability to live stream on the internet from their phone? So we started working on that, and then we launched something recently which is along the lines of Periscope and Meerkat, but blended with old-fashioned linear news channels. So we're kind of taking the old model and the new model and blending it together.
That's great. Rush, do you want to talk about entertainment, since we've been talking a lot about news? I have a feeling that's where this gets started, but go ahead, where the passion around live video streaming came for you.
Sure, yeah. My background is mostly in social apps. I come from that side of this, where for about 15 years now, I've seen it all, where we started with just basic text in GeoCities types of sites, over to the MySpaces, and evolving to Snapchat and Twitter, and now what we are. And I've started my own companies around trying to figure out ways to build communities and keep them engaged. And live streaming is just especially fascinating and interesting. And the company that I work for, Firetalk, has been in live streaming or live video chat for about 15 years now. And what's fascinating about that is people come together who don't know one another and turn their cams on and connect with each other anywhere in the world. But that's decentralized. And something that's interesting about what we're trying to do with Firetalk is give these broadcasters the ability to build their own communities. I think Periscope and Meerkat are really interesting, but one of the challenges is they stream maybe once or twice every week, but what happens beyond that, and how do they keep these people coming back, and how do they build a sustainable community, and that's something that we're trying to figure out.
So I think, you guys were all here for the earlier presentations, and we had some very arguably premium content providers on the stage talking about, big brands and big interactions and a lot of money flowing in space. Do you feel that anyone can be a video broadcaster, anyone should be a video broadcaster, anyone can create content? How do you feel about all these people who are just getting in front of their cameras and broadcasting out to the world?
Yeah, I think anyone can be a broadcaster, absolutely. If you think about very important images or footage being taken with phones lately, for example, a very important one was when Michael Brown, was it, from Ferguson, who got shot. Of course, we don't know who actually took that footage. And nevertheless, it was hugely important. And there's so many examples we can think of very, very important footage that was taken by just anyone. But I think that the challenge is not just about that anyone can broadcast. I think the also huge challenge for live video, and which also connects to what you were saying, is the idea of who can help curate and organize all this content that is coming in. That's something we're focusing on Rhineberg, and we allow people to curate live video as it's coming in. We basically aggregate, we focus again not just in streaming individually, but collectively, a broader picture. So say, for example, in this event, if you would be using Rhineberg, using the hashtag Vision Summit, a single page you could see all the different streams inside the room, and people can switch from one side to the other. And we also created what we call the VJ tools, which is basically enabling people to create and switch from one side to the other and share that in a different UI. So basically you allow people to not just create content, but to be editors in a context where there's so much video going on that you need help. Of course, algorithms can do part of the trick, but also people that understand what kind of content is out there can also help you and organize it in a way that is clean and it's worth consuming.
So Lippe, you've been at this for longest. How do you feel about this curation around creating sort of more premium content out of accidental broadcasting?
I think, curation and discovery is probably the hardest problem to solve, right? And nobody's cracked it yet. And I think the announcement of Google and Twitter yesterday, I think it was, where Google is now publishing tweets, I think is going to help Periscope and Meerkat to discover, because that's how people they search, right? And I was at News Guys in Helsinki last weekend, where we met with people from Google that are trying to address this, right? Because this is a hard one to crack. Going back to your earlier question about can anybody be a broadcaster, I think anybody can broadcast. Anybody can shoot a YouTube video. Anybody can take an Instagram picture. Is it interesting? I think that's the key question, right? Who can master this new medium? And we've seen this on YouTube. We had years of cat videos and boring videos, and now we have YouTube stars, kids that really understand how you engage an audience and how you build that audience. And I think we're only scratching the surface of this new interactive live streaming format. And I think it's going to take months, if not years, before we see the first stars emerge, probably months, actually.
So do you think that that's a technology
No.
effect, that's a generational effect? Like, kids are less afraid of being out there in a media space than they were before? We're better as parents helping them do that? Like, why is there a change? Why can
I think you saw it with you now, right? It's dominated by teenagers because they're the first to try new stuff out, and they're not afraid to make mistakes. Yeah. And the millennials, they're used to being in the spotlight, and they're very comfortable with this idea of sharing their personal lives. We did a pilot with the BBC just before the UK elections, where we had big-name journalists use our technology to follow political candidates in the field as they were campaigning. And it was almost laughably bad because they were using this new technology in an old way. They were broadcasting, right? And we had a guy in Charlie Hebdo in Paris saying, "I'm Dana Lewis, I'm live on the scene." And he was talking to his CNN audience. He was working for CNN. And then the first chat messages came in, and these journalists were really confused by how do you interact with an audience that never had to do that before. But then on the flip side, the younger kids, like Tim Pool is a good example, right? Tim Pool invented this genre of live casting on livestream.com. So maybe it is a generational thing, but I think at the end of the day, people need to get used to this. And we see in the UK and in the States, there's some older journalists that use this really, really, really well. So I don't think it has anything to do with technology. It's just a mindset.
Just getting used to it. So all of you get used to it. Rush, what do you want to say about interactive? Because I know Firetalk is all about the community around.
Yeah, but about your question about whether anyone can do it, again, just to add, I think anyone can live stream, but it takes a great deal of dedication and commitment to become really good at it. So similar to a YouTube star in the same way, you know, they don't just do it they don't just become a YouTube star overnight. Most of these people who are making a lot of money have been doing it for 6 to 7 years. You know, it doesn't just happen in 2 to 3 months. So I think that it's just about commitment. And what was your other question? Oh,
just about the interactivity around it. I mean, Lippe was talking about, you know, turning a news.
You know, I mean, live streaming. Live streaming has been around forever, right? I mean, it really has. Live stream, Ustream, they're all very, you know, amazing platforms that a lot of publishers are using, but it's all about the content and not as much about the interaction. I think that changed, you know, when Twitch really took over and introduced, and people started learning, wow, look at the power of the content driving people to a destination, but it being more about the community as the reason why they keep coming back. And I think that can happen across a variety of different categories, where if people start knowing one another and there's a certain level of intimacy that's formed, you'll see these people coming back and this becoming a long-term relationship, really, between the broadcaster, who can serve as a community organizer or could serve as a producer with their audience or their supporters.
Sure. Just to add what you were saying, I totally agree, and also agree with Lippe when he was saying that we're really just scratching the surface of this space, because one of the great things that I'm excited about, and our team is excited about the live video space, is that we all see the trend of video like taking over the internet completely. The head of Google Research was saying, you know, a couple of years ago that by 2020, like 90% of the bandwidth was going to be video, right? And also real time is another huge trend.
It's 84%.
84%, okay, but still
I
massive,
learned
right?
This yesterday, but more than 50% of mobile, and that's just going up and up and up.
Right, and the real time trend on the other side, right? Right now, on text, on audio. So if you see both trends, you can say, well, there's a huge space for video, and in spite of the excitement around recently Periscope and Meerkat, it's still super tiny compared to the space, right? Sure. So actually the day when Periscope launched was the day of huge attention on the space. So Twitter was, of course, pushing for it, and lots of coverage about this sort of battle between those two companies. They had about 50,000 mentions on Twitter. And that same day, there was an article that actually spoke about this. That same day, a guy resigned from the boy band One Direction, and that had 10 or 15 times more Twitter mentions that Periscope and Meerkat combined. So that gives
boy
you
bands always win.
Yeah,
always.
But it gives you an idea about, you know, the space, and they were really, really just getting started for it. And there's a huge trend for video, and I think it's just great and exciting to be here, trying to figure out what is the best equation to take advantage of it.
So I obviously agree with all that you said. I think from an engagement perspective, and there's a lot more to talk about from an engagement perspective for later, clearly, like, where people want to be is in front of video, interacting with video, broadcasting video, like sharing that whole like live, emotional, rich experience. How do you make money? In a live streaming environment, you're not talking about pre-roll. You're probably not talking about some of the other stuff that was prior to this in the native ad space, but just very curious. You actually have to make money because you're the oldest standing. You're obviously new, but there are obviously new models coming along. Rush, obviously, you're looking at new things. So I'm very interested to hear, and probably everyone here is like, this is all really, really great. Lots and lots of hours of interaction, whether it's millennials or beyond, but how are you going to make money?
So I think the key word there is what you mentioned, engaging, yeah. Right? This is a live video that only lives by its audience, right? If there's nobody watching, you will stop the live stream. So in other words, there is an audience. You can see how engaged they are through their chat activity, and they can't skip anything. They have to be there right then and there. The engagement of live video, the next generation of live video, which is what we're talking about, the Meerkat, Periscope type stuff, right? I think that provides massive, massive monetization opportunities. we're based in London, but I'm flying to LA this weekend because we're setting up an office in LA to work with the MCNs of this world, because we think that there's a tremendous opportunity to do interesting stuff there. And our journalists back in London and Europe have already told us, look, this is great, but how do we make money from this? So we've been thinking about this for a while, and on Livestation we already charge for content, right? So there's a pay-per-view. If somebody does an interview with David Cameron, they can stand outside and say, look, the first 200 to pay me £10 can, come in with me and ask questions, right, for example. Yep. So premium content is something that we've been doing for years, because that's how we got CNN and BBC distributed, and this is just, the next version of that. But then you have advertising, and you said pre-rolls. Well, I don't believe in pre-rolls on live.
Anywhere.
Anywhere, but if you want to watch a movie or some quality television content, why not sit through an ad, right? That's how this stuff gets paid. But on a live feed, we've seen this. Breaking news on Al Jazeera. The last thing you want to do is suffer through a 30-second ad, right, or any advertising at all. However, this is a live feed is very engaging in the Periscope Meerkat sense, right? So what we're working on Livestation is mid-rolls, right? Because think about it, this is how linear TV got monetized in the old days. You would announce, okay, we're about to commence this performance of this artist after the break. Right, you can do this on Periscope or Meerkat type technology.
If you're producing it yourself. I think if you're producing it yourself.
Yeah,
Because
well,
it's always a challenge when you're broadcasting live. Like
absolutely.
I once upon a time when I worked at Yahoo, we did a very big live video streaming of Michael Jackson's funeral. Not an awesome topic, but 3 hours of Michael Jackson's funeral streaming from the front page of yahoo.com. Did not break, I'm happy to say. Did not break, but there was really no good way of monetizing. Display ads around the page and other things were happening. But now I think the notion that you'd interrupt a live event with some sort of advertising is tough. So what do you do around that? So
on user-generated live stuff, you can ask the broadcaster to push a button and then you insert an ad, right? On linear feeds or events or anything that is broadcasting in a traditional sense online, it's really tough, right? You can't really do it. The only thing the models there are very simple. You either charge the user, right, or you experiment with overlays. But anything else, like you can't do mid-rolls because you will interrupt the experience.
Rush?
Well, I think, and Adi mentioned it with you now and the success they've had with virtual credits, and that's not new. That's something that a lot of these companies in Asia, including YY, have made hundreds of millions of dollars a year. I've seen it with what we're working on as well, where virtual goods are something that people are willing to buy, and it's almost a form of tipping, but it's also a form of self-expression. It's a way for you to express, what you're feeling towards the broadcaster, in whether it's a rose or a chocolate or a trophy or whatever it is you're sending to them. But those things can also be a form of native advertising as well. We did something with Miller, where they were doing something around the Super Bowl, and they wanted these stickers to be, sent around, almost like a messaging app that you'd see online, a line or cacao. But it's the same thing that could happen while somebody's live streaming, where they're showing their approval or expressing themselves through a sticker or a gift, saying "Go team" or "I love that scene" or "You go" or whatever it is. But those things can be branded, and they're really a new way of brands inserting themselves into this experience. And again, they're coming from the audience more than they are in this traditional sense in terms of ways to monetize. And of course, there's subscription, which is if the content is worth it, and if there's something where only, like you mentioned, only 200 people have access to this live stream, then those 200 people that are your biggest fans might be willing to pay for it. So you may have 5 million followers or subscribers on YouTube, but you want your live streaming channel to be complementary and be something that helps keep your top 1% or top 5% of fans engaged.
So in our case, so we have outlined, the different models that are out there. Of course, ads, search, will all depend on the size of the audience. It's also very important to see what the audience is willing to take, right? And to understand the audience, and basically wait for the demand instead of actually supplying a specific kind of offer. But what we're aiming to do right now is we believe there's a big model there, has to do with content distribution and curation. So we're working with some media organizations this way that they need for the purpose of news, for example, to curate, to organize, and to be sourced in by basically phones that get out there first when news break, right? So if they can flag content coming their way in real time, and if they can use our VJ tool to actually switch in real time videos as they come in, then there's actually, you can toll for that. And maybe you can even share it with the audience that is contributing with it. So that is definitely an avenue that we're exploring.
That's awesome. Okay, so just to wrap up, we're going to do quick fire one words. One word, I'll throw at you. You can throw me one word back. Rush to get live.
The future.
Lippe, Meerkat.
Good luck.
You get pre-roll.
Which one?
Pre-roll.
Old.
Rush, FaceTime.
Periscope.
Native.
Profitable.
YouTube.
Respect.
You all get to answer this one. The future of video is?
Live.
The future of video is?
Super exciting.
The future of video is?
Interactive.
The future of video is here. Now I will take questions if you guys have any out there. Good.
Thanks. Alessio from Warbucks. How do you deal with improper content, which is streamed live?
Great question.
So that's actually we were talking yesterday, right now next to the coffee, because
was that
of
a plant
the work
question?
you were doing. Yeah, I definitely see, and actually the last presentation, that search can definitely play a very important role in like organizing content. But definitely, for us, curation is something that machines can do a lot. YouTube is doing a lot of that as well. But we're also relying on people as well as organizing that content in a way that, again, makes sense for people to consume. So curation, hashtags, VJs are some of the tools we have for that.
And this is big news this morning because the YouTube Kids channel is being reported for inappropriate content. So it's just like, obviously, like YouTube already is, in some trouble for this. So Lippe, what do you think?
Yeah, the same crowdsourcing, right? So this is kind of how everybody tries to solve it at the moment. This is how YouTube did it for years. You let the audience flag it. If it gets flagged 5 times, you remove it, and then you review, right? So that's kind of how we're looking at this. One of my board members only half joked. He said, well, 30% of Instagram is girls, right, selling services. So maybe we should put ads against that stuff. And I think he was joking, but I need to have another word with him.
Another chat. One more question?
I can't believe you're all that shy.
I know. This is about live broadcasting.
When you're
AMAs.
When you're facing,
ask me anything. What's going on?
I bet you 5 of you come up to me and say, "I'd love to meet such." I got this question. No, ask it now.
Is anybody broadcasting this? Because maybe the virtual audience has questions.
We were broadcasting it earlier over here in front. Anybody know? Take it away. Finish it up.
Oh, there we go.
Where? Oh, good. I'm coming.
This is how you keep fit.
That's right. That's right.
He's also filming all around the room.
Can you stand up?
Thank you.
Just curious if you're building any tools into your streaming services, like DVRs or replay or anything like that?
Yeah, we're giving that option to the broadcaster after every episode. They can either make it ephemeral and go disappear, or they can select to make it something that they can add to their archives. And we're also making it very easy for them to put it onto their YouTube channel with a one-click.
Yeah, we record everything. We keep it forever, and we actually have done something pretty innovative, I think, because we record it in the cloud like everybody else, but then we also give the user the option to record a local version on their device in 720p, and that version then gets uploaded to the cloud once they're back on a good connection. So that means that if a journalist or somebody else is shooting something live, if somebody doesn't catch that in time and they see the recording an hour later, they can see that in crisp HD quality.
Yeah, in our case, we're also keeping our archive by default. People can then erase it. Another very important factor for us is actually gaining the trust of our community. So actually people have control about their data, and if they choose to eliminate it, it's totally out from our service.
I'm going to ask you to do a selfie with the thing in the back. If you can put the video camera there on the back.
Thank you so much, all of you, for coming.
Thanks to you
guys.
Yeah, the video of us on the back top.